Hello and welcome back to the podcast. Today we are going to be discussing change, what it requires to change, and why people don't change. I'm going to keep this episode short and sweet as I can, and just sort of get really to the points because it's really important for us to understand because I know that a lot of us do want to make changes in our lives and even maybe are frustrated by attempting to make changes in our lives and not necessarily getting the results that we're looking for. And this is usually because when we think about changing, we think about behavior. So we're trying to change behaviors. So, we're saying, okay, I'm going to try to eat healthier. I'm going to try to go to the gym. I'm going to try to get to bed earlier. We're trying to do change on behavioral level when what is really important for us to understand is that we actually want to focus on changing on the identity level. And change on the identity level really is not about changing, but about evolving. You're not becoming someone different. You're becoming a more evolved version of yourself, a more authentic, a more true, a more integrated version of yourself. Oftentimes, when we're trying to make behavioral changes in things that we do, we are actually operating against our current identity. And if our current identity is not lined up with somebody who exercises or takes care of themselves or eats well or prioritizes rest, if that is not our current identity, then the behavior change isn't going to match up with the person that we are in this moment. And so we actually, in order to have sustainable change in our lives, we actually want to focus on evolving our identity, evolving who we are and who we are being. This means actually evolving aspects of ourselves that are misaligned with who we are wanting to be and who we are meant to be. And so before we even get to this point, most of us have identified, I want to do something different. I want to do something different in my life. I want a different experience. I want different results. I want different outcomes. Something needs to change. And when we first have this awareness that something needs to change, it either shows up as discomfort, where it's like, I don't like where I am at, or I don't like what I am doing, or I don't like how I am feeling, or I don't like something about my current circumstance is our first indication of like something needs to change because I'm uncomfortable where I currently am at. Or we might have another way that we need to change, or we are identifying that we need to change. And this is because I'm feeling like I want something. I want something more. I want something else. I want something bigger. It just is this desire for something more. So we either have a discomfort or we have a desire. These two things are usually our first indication of I want to change. I want something to be different. So, step one is the rising of a discomfort or the rising of a desire. People who do transform, they take this discomfort and they take this desire and they move with it. They're like, okay, I'm uncomfortable here. What is this telling me? This is kind of letting me know that I've outgrown this space or, that these emotions need to be processed or something needs to happen with the discomfort that I'm noticing. Or they notice I have a desire, I want something more, and they start to be curious about it, move in that direction, start to put themselves in positions or places where this something more might exist. They start to take action based on the desire. This is how we transform. We take action based on our discomfort and we take action based on our desires. When people are not changing, what is happening is when their discomfort rises up, what they're actually wanting to do is ignore it. They're actually wanting to push it down. They're wanting to avoid it. They might be like, oh, I'm unhappy in this situation. But then even the awareness of that is something that they're afraid of. And so they're like, nope, never mind. I don't even want to look at that. So they might numb it. They might cope it. They might convince themselves that everything's fine and like kind of continue to be in this cycle of settling for a while where they're like, no, everything's fine. Because when they think about making a change, and then they become afraid. So then they continue to accept this thing that they don't want, or they start to numb out their discomfort. One thing that we really do a lot of is we use coping strategies, or we are constantly trying to get back to feeling calm. This is how we override our information because that discomfort is actually telling us, I don't like it here. I need to change. I don't like what I'm doing, who I'm being, how I'm feeling, and I want to do something about it. But when the discomfort rises and we get avoidant or we get uncomfortable with it, then we kind of just want it to go away. And so most of the time, if we are not transforming, it's because when that comfort comes up, we are ignoring it, we are avoiding it, we are covering it up, we are numbing it out. We are not actually giving it the space to offer the information that it wants to offer, which is that wherever I am at right now, I am not interested in being here emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually. The same thing hinders us from transforming when our desire rises. When I'm thinking, oh, I want something more. I want more love, more life, more exploration. I want, to move out of my business and to start my own career or my own practice. I want to take that risk. I want to do that thing. I want more friendships. I want more, whatever is sort of coming up in that desire. A lot of the times, again, what happens if we're not transforming or we're not evolving is that when that desire rises, we meet it with all of our fears, our doubts, our insecurities, and then we push it back down and we actually pretend that we don't actually want those things. I don't actually want more love. I don't actually want more life. I don't actually want another relationship or, more money or more abundance or anything, because all of our beliefs or limitations around whether that's possible or not come up. And then we're like, never mind. I actually don't want that. And so if we're not transforming, if we're not evolving, it's because when discomfort or desire arises, we are not receiving the information. We are actually avoiding it and pushing it down in some way, shape, or form. This is like the step one to transformation. We have to actually know that we want to transform. We actually have to have these indications of there's something more that I want, or there's something here that I'm done with. And that information, we have to let it come up so that we can receive it. This requires a level of honesty with ourselves. A lot of people are not being honest with themselves about what they want, about what they don't want, about how they really feel about areas of their lives and how they really feel about how they're choosing to live their lives. A lot of people are denying themselves of their own truth. And so they're not able to actually see the truth of what is uncomfortable or what is their desire. And then they're not actually able to be set free from that truth because they're not being honest with themselves. So as the desire and as the discomfort rises, we want to be very honest with ourselves around, yeah, I don't like this anymore. Yes, I really do want this. That honesty, that awareness, that actually allowing ourselves to receive the information there and actually allowing ourselves to be sort of truthful around what is presenting itself lets us move into the next space of the evolution, into the next space where we are now going to take action based on the information that's presenting itself to us. This really is a step towards making very impactful and important changes in your life at the root level, at the identity level, at the base level, not just at the behavior change, but at the actual root. So the next step of our evolution, and I'm calling it evolution because again, we're not becoming a different person, we're becoming a more expanded version of ourselves. Currently, the state that we are in has limitations and doubts, and we're not really getting to have a full experience of who we are. And so as we are noticing our desires and our discomforts, then we are able to move into evolving into a more expanded, a more authentic version of ourselves. And so the next part of changing and how people who change and people who don't change is to have a level of self-awareness. And so a lot of the times we're not changing because we're spending a lot of times judging ourselves and not spending a lot of times understanding ourselves. And so in order to have self-awareness, we have to be able to and desire to understand ourselves. In order to know why I'm doing what I'm doing, especially if it's something that I don't necessarily want to be doing, if I judge myself for it, then I have no idea what is behind that behavior. I have no idea what is behind that door. But if I take time to be an observer of myself and I ask myself, why am I doing this? How does this make me feel? what am I avoiding in this decision that I'm making that I actually don't necessarily want to be making? When we take time to be curious and to understand ourselves, this raises our self-awareness. This raises our knowledge of self. We begin to understand why we do what we do, what causes us to make certain decisions, and what we're avoiding in ourselves, and how our childhood impacted these things. And we now are able to have a level of awareness that allows us to make more conscious decisions, more intentional choices based on what we want, not based on who we've always been or things that we're trying to avoid or judgments that we have about ourselves. When we have a level of self awareness, then we're like, okay, I know myself. I know that I get quiet when I think that people don't understand what I'm saying. And so I might be aware that when I'm out and I'm starting to kind of shut down, I'm like, oh, this is what's happening right now. I think that they don't understand me. And so I'm shutting down. So like, let me bring myself back into the conversation and like continue to be myself, my authentic self here. And so different things like that, our self-awareness allows us to notice what's happening and to be an observer of it, not judgmental about it, and then make a conscious decision about what we want to do in that moment with the awareness that we have of ourselves. If I know, I was listening to somebody who was talking on their Instagram the other day, and they were saying, I know that I have a wound of wanting to feel special. And so when I'm out and I'm dating, I'm aware that when something gets activated in me, I'm like, oh, this is that part of me that really wants to feel special. And so I can have an awareness around, let me kind of reel this back in because I want to make a conscious choice here and not go into like an unconscious experience of like whatever is being activated inside of me. And so our level of self-awareness allows us to be an observer of ourselves and not get hijacked and go into unconscious patterns, and also not to judge ourselves for doing so. And so whenever I'm working with clients and they say, I don't know why I did that. I don't know why I do that. This is an indication of lacking in self-awareness. And this is also an opportunity to get to know yourself more. We never want to be accepting, I don't know, as an answer when we are talking about ourselves. We want to go into that space and explore it. Why do I do that? How was I feeling? What was I thinking? What was coming up for me so that I can understand myself more? And I'm not going to meet it with judgment. I'm going to meet it with curiosity. Self-awareness really allows ourselves to see ourselves more clearly so that when we are making decisions of transformation and change, it's coming from a place of knowing ourselves clearly and not judging ourselves. People who are not desiring, who are not changing, is because they are not willing to look at themselves. They're not willing to reflect. They're not willing to observe. They're not willing to be with themselves. And so they remain in these unconscious patterns and they continue to stay the same because they don't want the discomfort of being with something it doesn't feel great inside, or being with something that they don't necessarily like, a decision that they've made or something that they've done or a feeling that they're feeling. They don't want to be with that space. And so they are not able to build self-awareness because they're not able to actually look at themselves. And so then they kind of keep repeating the same patterns over and over again, which then reinforces more judgment and shame, and which then causes them to not want to look at themselves even more. Those people who are really evolving, it's because they have a level of self-awareness that continues to grow and expand. They're so curious about, why did I just do that? Why did I just say that? What did I want to do and say instead? Like, they're very curious about themselves. They want to know everything about who they are and who they were and why they are the way they are and what happened to them, and how they can reconnect with their truth and who they are truly. This level of curiosity and desire to understand self is a very important step to evolution, because if we cannot even deal with anything that we are not seeing. And if I am not willing to look at myself, I don't even know what I need to deal with, because I am not seeing, I am not looking. Without the awareness, we cannot make change because we don't even know what there is that is requiring change. We need to see in order to respond to, in order to react to, in order to create change around. And so if we are not willing to look at ourselves, then we are lacking in self-awareness. We don't know who we are. We don't know what we want. We don't know why we do what we do. And then we don't essentially know what needs to change or what we would want to change or how we would want to change it. And then on top of that, there's also a lot of judgment and shame that prevents even more reflection and really like an identity of somebody who is not worthy, not capable, not deserving. And we really kind of hold on to these aspects of our identities that really are the things that are requiring change so that we can see ourselves even more clearly than that. And so again, the people who are evolving are willing to, excited about understanding themselves more. They really want to know why I make the decisions I make, why I do the things that I do, and how come I'm not getting the outcomes that I want, and what's coming up for me, what needs to be healed from my past, what stories am I telling myself, what lies am I telling myself about myself. Like we really are in a state of observing self from an observer, not from judgment. So we can see clearly what is misaligned and we can heal it so that we can then choose what feels more aligned. The second piece is self reflection. So, along with self awareness, that desire to see yourself more clearly, we want to be able to reflect. We want to be able to be in inquiry with ourselves. Again, going back to those questions, why did I do that thing? Why did I think about that? What does that mean for me? We really want to go into our inner experience. We want to know what we think about something, how we feel about something, how something applies to me specifically. A lot of the times we are thinking about, oh, that person needs this advice or that person needs this information. And I used to be a lot like this until I realized, what comes to me is for me. And so now anything I learn, I'm like, how can I run this through myself? How can I integrate this into myself so I can be in deeper integrity? Like this lesson that's here is for me to apply to me and embody to me. And then I can be an expression of that and share that with others. But oftentimes we're not actually looking at ourselves. We're more looking at other people because we really think that I am this way because of how they are being. And if they were being different, then I could be different. This is going to take me into a next point of self-responsibility because this really is a big way how we give our power away. But in terms of that importance of when we are looking at ourselves and understanding ourselves more than we are looking at others and trying to understand others. This is a really important aspect because we spend a lot of our time trying to figure out other people and why they're doing that and why they're doing what they're doing and, et cetera, et cetera. We want to do this for ourselves. I want to reflect on who I am, why I do what I do, what is important to me, what I like, what I dislike. I want to know myself so well that I can tell when something is in or out of alignment with me, that I can take an opportunity because I know when I trust that I can follow through with it, that I can say no to something and put up a boundary when something is not in alignment with me. This self-awareness that is fueled by our self-reflection really allows us to know self so that we can live a life that is in alignment and continue to evolve and change into bigger versions of ourselves. The next point is self-responsibility. People who are evolving are really taking responsibility for their lives. They are not blaming the system, their families, the community, the culture, other people, what happened to them. They are really taking responsibility for their life, some even radical responsibility, where they are always asking themselves, okay, what do I want to do with this now? This thing happened to me. How am I going to respond to it? Responsibility really is our ability to respond. And so people who are evolving are really have a belief that their life is in their hands and that what they do is up to them. And the more that we are in self-awareness and the more that we are in self-reflection, the more that we are honest with ourselves, the more we really understand our true power, the more we really understand that we have power within and our power is not outside of us. This is where, empowerment means power within. And when we are self-aware, when we self-reflect, when we're honest with ourselves, and when we're taking responsibility for our lives, we are empowered. We are able to access power within. We know ourselves, so we can trust ourselves. We have a relationship with ourselves. And so we are able to make decisions based on our own self because of that relationship that we have with ourselves. So people who are evolving are really taking responsibility for their lives. They are not blaming other people. They are not holding other people, the resentment towards other people. They're not saying, this happened to me because of them, and now I'm angry or I'm upset or I'm hurt, and I'm going to continue to hold on to this because of what that person did to me. They're really asking themselves, okay, how is this impacting me for me to hold on to this blame or this resentment or this anger? And I want to take responsibility for what I am going to do with this experience so that I do not allow someone else's behavior to hinder the way that I am now going to live my life. This is a really important piece for me through my betrayal and my separation and divorce, was to really understand that other people's behaviors are an indication of who they are, and how I respond to it is an indication of who I am. And I wasn't going to make someone else's behavior mean something about me. I had to see what was activated in me. I had to see what was coming up for me. And with that self-awareness, that self-reflection, I was able to notice things that were living inside of me, limiting beliefs, identities, how I felt about myself, some insecurities and self-doubts. And I was like, okay, I want to heal these and release these so that I can feel more free in who I am. And this is how self-awareness goes from observing things that are rising up to being afraid or judging them, and then now moving away from them. And I was like, no, I see these things. I see these elements that are inside of me, and I want to heal them. And so that in that moment, even though there was a betrayal, and I could have blamed my ex-husband, and I could have held on to that forever and said, all men are this and blah, blah, blah. But I was able to understand I need to be responsible for my own life and my own decisions. And not only that, but I'm able to be responsible for this. I'm able to heal with my heart still open, knowing that I have the awareness and the reflection and the desire and the honesty with myself that I can move through these things in a way that allows me to still maintain my own truth and not have that be impacted by somebody else. When we are blaming other people for what's happening in our lives, whether it's a system, whether it's a person, whether it's a past, we are really saying that this thing has more power in my life than I do. And that is just simply not true. We're saying this thing has a more impact on who I am being than I do. This thing has more say in who I'm going to be than I do. And that is just absolutely not true. We want to take our power back and not blame other things for, who we are, but really understand that we have the ability to respond, and that when we take that, we are able to evolve and transform in such a powerful way. I always say too that, because we live in a part of the world where we do have more autonomy, more sovereignty, more independence, more safety, more security, this idea that we can be responsible for our lives really is a privilege that we sort of, we deserve and are expected to use. Because if other people in other parts of the world don't have access to this privilege, and they are actually, disempowered in a lot of ways, and we are also living over here, but we have access, but we are choosing to live disempowered, then we are actually not able to make change on a micro or a macro level. It's really important for us to access the power that we have internally, because we sort of have permission in our society to be able to do that. And so this is really important for us to be responsible for our lives, especially when it comes to our evolution, our change, and our growth. If anything that you are holding on to, that somebody did to you, that something happened to you, and you feel like this is holding you, that this is preventing you from moving forward, or that this has changed your view of life, it is your responsibility for you to heal that so that you can clear your mind, clear your heart, clear yourself, come back to yourself, and continue to live a life that is aligned with who you actually are, and that is not being stunted or blocked or impacted by the behavior of somebody else or something else that is making it difficult or impossible for you to access your truth now. And so self-responsibility is a very important thing. We want to move out of blame. We want to move out of the idea that taking responsibility for your life means that anybody is blaming you for anything that has happened. It's really just saying, here, let me put the power back in your own hands so that you can make a choice about how you want to live your life that is coming from your truth and is not coming from this situation. That is what self-responsibility is. And it's really important. Anybody who is evolving, anyone who is changing and transforming, they are taking radical responsibility for their lives. On a more all-encompassing note, another aspect that's really important is our beliefs. A lot of people are not living the life that they want to live or evolving or changing because of their belief systems. As soon as you hear something around that's unrealistic, that's not possible, that's not for me, I'm not worthy of that, anything that you're moving towards something and something comes up and stops you, and is in your way, a thought, a belief, an emotion, all of that is to be healed. It is not to be adhered to. Those are not stop signs. Those are actually just things along the way, little checkpoints that are like, okay, heal this, because the version of you who has this thing that you want, or the version of you that is evolving, it does not have this experience of themselves. She does not think that she's not good enough. She does not think that she's not worthy. She does not think that she is unlovable. And so, and as you evolve and you become the version of you who knows she's worthy and knows she's lovable, that is what we're talking about when we're saying evolution and change. You are not becoming a different version. You are just knowing yourself more deeply, your value, your worth, your intrinsic nature, your power. These things are evolving with you as you are changing. You are just becoming a more true version of yourself. And so a big thing about people who do change are because they have the belief, or they are willing to get it. They are willing to seek it. They are willing to find it. I remember when I was leaving my career as a social worker, which I practiced social work for about 15 years before I went into my own practice, maybe about 12 years. When I was leaving my last job, which was at Child Protection, I could not be there anymore. I just was miserable beyond comprehension. Loved the families. It was just the system. It was the whole thing, was not for me. And so I knew, I had a feeling I wanted to do my own thing because I had been through so many different career paths up until that point. And I was like, I can't, I know this isn't for me. I need to do my own thing. But I had no belief in myself that I could do it. I knew I wanted it, and I knew I was being honest with the desire that was rising and the discomfort that was showing up. It was unbearable. I couldn't even I couldn't even ignore it anymore. But then I was honest with the desire that was rising as well. And then I noticed, okay, I know I want this, but my beliefs are not matching. Like I don't see how I can do this. But I knew that other people had done it. And so I said, okay, I'm going to learn how they did it. What did they believe? What did they perceive? Where were they in the moment they decided, and how did they get to where they wanted to be? And there was a podcast at that time called Don't Keep Your Day Job. And I started listening to it. And it was basically just episodes, hundreds and hundreds of episodes of people who quit their day jobs, and they didn't believe in themselves, but they built their beliefs, and now they are running businesses. And so I listened to it every single day, and I started to see myself in their stories. Oh, they also doubted themselves. Oh, they also had trauma, or they also had, limiting beliefs. They also had fears and doubts and all these different things. And so when I could see myself in their beginning, I was able to recognize that our beliefs change. And as we're moving in the direction of our desires, and we're moving through the things that are making us feel uncomfortable, and we're allowing ourselves to be guided in that way, our beliefs will change along those ways, especially if we are intentionally looking at the possibility, looking at, I want this. I know there's somebody else in this world who has this as well. How did they do it? What did they do? The same thing happened when we were going through fertility treatments to have my daughter. And I was like, nope, I watched so many fertility vlogs to just see other journeys and see myself in their journeys and how they made decisions and what they decided to do and how they went from, so much uncertainty to having a baby. And that possibility allows you to expand your beliefs. A lot of people think that their beliefs are truths. And so when they have a thought, they just think it's true. They don't actually recognize, wait, this is just a belief. This is not a truth. And I have had so many beliefs that change. I used to believe in Santa. Now I don't. This is how beliefs work. They are not truths. They are fed by your belief in them. As soon as you don't believe in them, they cease to exist. The same way that Santa Claus exists because you believe in him. And then as soon as you take your belief away, he ceased to exist. You actually see the reality of his non existence. This is what happens with our beliefs. As soon as I stop believing that I'm not worthy and I start believing that I am, the belief of not worthiness like ceases to exist. And so this is a really important thing of people who are evolving. They are willing to look at their beliefs and challenge them and see, is there something that I'm telling myself or thinking or believing that is keeping me away from the things that I want? Because that thing probably isn't true and it probably needs to change. And so this again goes back to that self-awareness, that self-reflection. I'm willing to look at the beliefs that I'm holding. I'm willing to look at the thoughts that I'm thinking. I'm willing to look at the emotions that I'm not willing to feel, and that I'm also willing to take responsibility for, hold on a second, someone else has moved through this before. I could probably do that too. Or the version of me who has what they want, they would believe this other thing. And so if that belief is something that's available in the space of available beliefs, and it's available to me. And so people who are evolving are really recognizing that they want to change any belief that they have that something is not possible for them, and they want to line up with beliefs that are going to connect them to who they are and what they are truly wanting. And so I just wanted to break down sort of these sort of not little, but these like foundational concepts to evolving and sort of take away the idea that like we're changing. We're actually not changing. We are actually becoming more true versions of ourselves. We are getting rid of the thoughts, the beliefs, the emotions that are unprocessed, that are not actually aligned with who we truly are, so that we can recognize who we really are, that we are powerful, that we are beautiful, that we are smart, that we are capable, that we can trust ourselves, that we are intuitive, that we are strong, that we are confident, that we are lovable. We actually want to step into the experience of ourselves where we are living from these truths of who we are. And that is how who we are expands. If you are having a limited experience of yourself in your life, it's because on some level you're believing something about yourself and about life that is limited, that has a limitation. And so we actually want to move into more true, honest beliefs so that we can evolve and expand ourselves. I think that's it. Hope that was helpful to kind of see the importance of self awareness, self reflection, self responsibility, being honest with yourself, noticing your desires, noticing your discomforts, and not pushing them down, because that's like step one. If we are not noticing that we're uncomfortable, if we're not noticing that we want more, then we are not changing. We are staying exactly where we are. Those other pieces are not even able to rise up. If you're like, nope, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see my discomforts. I don't want to see my desires. You are literally like shutting yourself off. This is when we are saying that people are asleep. And then, in spirituality and in like the consciousness world, we talk about people waking up. It's because they're waking up to their truth. They're waking up to what they've been avoiding or ignoring. They're waking up to reality, to what's real, to what's true. They're not living in their mind anymore. They're actually living with their eyes open to the truth. And if you are continuing to push on your discomfort and your desires, then you are continuing to stay asleep. And so when we are allowing ourselves to notice that, we can move into some self awareness, some self reflection, some self responsibility. These are three really important elements to evolution. And then we can also move into recognizing any beliefs that we have that are opposing what we want, and really understanding that the version of me who has this, what do they believe? Or other people who have done what it is that I'm wanting to do, what do they believe? And understanding that our beliefs are only fueled by our belief in them. They are not fueled, they are not truths. They are fueled by our belief in them. Okay. So I hope that this is helpful, and I hope that you have a beautiful rest of your day. Message me with any questions that you have, any comments, any clarity that you need. And I really look forward to hearing from you. And as always, I'm sending you so much love.